Hello and welcome to Star Wars Breaking Canon, a podcast where we break down and analyze each live-action entry in the Star Wars universe, from the original trilogy to The Mandalorian and beyond. I'm James Callahan.
I'm Joseph McCorkle.
I'm Julius Freeman.
And on today's episode, we're discussing 2002's Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, written by George Lucas and Jonathan Hales, and directed by George Lucas. Julius, tell me about the first time that you saw Attack of the Clones, and tell me about your feelings about it now.
Oh man, I only seen it 3 times total. The first time was in the theater when it came out back in 2002, right?
Yeah, 2002.
2002. And the second time I watched it, it was for my YouTube channel, Talking Cinema. And then the third time was last night for this podcast.
Third time was a charm?
A little bit, actually. But I hated this movie when it came out. I thought it was the worst movie I had ever seen that year. And I'm a huge Star Wars fan, which was very heartbreaking for me because I wanted to love it. I wanted to like it. I wanted to enjoy it, but I just couldn't get past Hayden Christensen's delivery of his lines. I couldn't get past all the overwhelming amount of green screen, backdrops. That kind of took away from the experience of Star Wars, seeing the practical effects, because that's what made Star Wars for me. And I just felt like it was just too much. The acting wasn't great. There are some flashes of cool action scenes. Like the one thing I will say, George Lucas is a great action director for sure, like 100%. But he can't work with actors for whatever reason. And I hated this movie, man. This movie was the turning point for me. This is what killed the Star Wars hype for me. This is what made me hate Star Wars, the prequels. This is what made me hate George Lucas as a director. And I fell out of love with Star Wars after this movie. And I refused to watch episode 3. And I didn't watch episode 3 up until maybe last year. But overall, yeah, it wasn't my favorite Star Wars movie, even when I was watching it last night. Like I said, flashes, but few and far in between.
I do admire that level of consistency. And you saw the movie, you were like, I'm done with this franchise. And you didn't see Revenge of the Sith for 15 years. That's some real commitment to being, off the Star Wars bandwagon.
Oh man, it was like I said, heartbreaking because I wanted to love it. I wanted to talk with my friends about how cool it was, but it wasn't. I just couldn't do it. I can't do it. It's one of those things where it's like, I can't be fake about it. I have to be real. I hate these damn movies. Episode 1's still good. Episode 1 still holds up, like we talked in the last episode. But this one was just atrociously bad.
I think there is a little bit of a pattern in how I think that, at least for me, where I kind of fell off the franchise. And I think that it turns out you're kind of one movie ahead of me on that. Because like for me, it was Revenge of the Sith. And of course, we'll talk about that next week. But for me, when this movie came out, I was 16 years old and my hype levels were peaked out for this. Because with the Phantom Menace, or no, I'm sorry, I was 17 when this movie came out. And I was 14 when Phantom Menace came out. And, at that point, I didn't have a job. I didn't have access to money or transportation to get to a movie theater. So I was really limited on my ability to see movies more than once. And you had mentioned that you saw Phantom Menace 12 times, right? When it was in theaters.
Yeah.
So Joseph, what's your memory of seeing this movie? Because we saw this movie together. We saw it at midnight. And I think this is all we talked about for like the 12 months leading up to the movie. Like this was the one thing in life we were waiting for. And once we saw the movie, our life could have ended because I think that this is all we cared about for like a span of a year. At least that's how I remember it.
Yeah. I mean, when Phantom Menace came out, I was a kid and I got to see Phantom Menace once. And so when Attack of the Clones was coming out, it was like I was 16, I could drive. And it was like, this is my time to shine. I'm going to watch this movie so many times. And I think I saw it 8 times. How many times did you see it, James?
I think I saw it 6 times. And as a cinephile, I think it's very weird for me that I think to this day, I've seen Attack of the Clones more times in theaters than any other movie ever, which is really depressing because it's not any indication of quality whatsoever. It just happens to be the movie that I saw over and over.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very proud of the fact that I got to see it at midnight. And that was really fun. Like I remember there were like two lines, each going into separate auditoriums on either side of the theater, and in between, people are having lightsaber fights.
Oh yeah.
And I remember jumping in there
Hmm.
Ah, nice,
for a hot minute. Yeah, that was good times. You know, that was like quality
nice.
Star Wars childhood fun. We also saw it in IMAX,
That's
and
right.
which was like a very interesting screening because they had to actually like cut it down so that it could fit on the reels for
Yes.
these giant projectors. I
Yeah.
also saw it on the biggest screen at the time on the West Coast at the big Newport Theater. It's like 6 stories tall.
Oh wow.
But yeah, it was overall just a very fun movie going experience. And I find it's like kind of funny that like now I kind of like Phantom Menace more than Attack of the Clones because at the time I was super hyped.
Yeah, I think at the time too, it felt like vindication for the reaction to the Phantom Menace, because I think at that point I still really liked the Phantom Menace, but I was starting to buy into the backlash towards the movie and towards the franchise. And my feeling going into Attack of the Clones was basically, no matter what, this movie's going to be the one that, seals the deal on Star Wars being the best thing ever. It was starting to get overshadowed in the culture by like The Matrix and Lord of the Rings, but I felt like Attack of the Clones was the one that was going to bring Star Wars back, because we were going to get the Clone Wars, we were going to see Jedi in action, and like how do you fuck that up, and then we basically saw the movie, and George Lucas kind of demonstrated how that's possible. And yeah, it's one of those things that's sort of weird to look back on, that at the time I felt so hyped watching this movie, and I felt like I was seeing everything I wanted to see in a Star Wars movie. And I think what happened for me was, after the film came out on DVD and I watched it at home by myself, and I think we went to Naboo with Padme and Anakin, and they started like rolling around in the meadows, was the moment I realized, oh God, this movie has a lot of problems. So yeah, anyway, I do think that there is that kind of, especially for, people our age when the prequels came out, if you're a Star Wars fan, I think that once you get past the hype leading up to the release of the movie and the experience of going with your friends and talking about it and seeing it over and over again, that once it loses the newness and you're left with what the movie actually is, at least for me, that's when I start to discover all of the problems. So watching the film this time, though, I was kind of waiting for the film to piss me off and make me angry, because the movie usually does that around its second act. I gotta be honest with you guys, I kind of enjoyed it this time around. Did you guys have similar experiences?
No, for me anyway.
A lot of this movie works. It's just that love story is not great.
And that's what it is. I wrote here in my notes that George Lucas is a great action director, but a terrible dialogue writer, and a terrible director working with actors, because actors, um, they need direction. That's their role. That's their job. Their job is to show up to set and follow what the director, or follow the, I guess, the director's whims. Like, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to take this thing to? And the director's job is to let them know, okay, here's what I'm looking for. And George Lucas just does not do that at all. I think he just like, just do whatever you want. And Hayden Christensen, well, he was 19 at the time when he got the part, right?
I believe he was around that age, yeah.
Yeah, so he was 19, so he's probably a new kid. He's nervous. He's in a Star Wars movie, so he's like, he doesn't know where to funnel that energy, that nervous energy, and it just came out terrible. But going back to what Joseph said, yeah, it does have its good moments, and those were the action scenes, but the love scene, oof, talk about cringe.
That fireplace scene.
Oh my God, it's so bad. There are some howlers during those scenes.
Yes, all of Anakin's lines specifically, I wrote down specifically and underlined during the fireplace scene. You know what it was? I realized that George Lucas was telling as opposed to showing
Yes.
when it came to this, and that was his problem. It's like, dude, why are you telling the audience what Anakin's feeling? That's where the acting comes into play. That's where the audience can pick up the subtextual, things that are going on in his mind. but instead you have him say what he's thinking out loud, and it just came out so bad, like so bad.
It really makes you appreciate the subtleties of the romance in the original trilogy between Han and
Yeah,
Leia, and especially in
yeah,
The Empire Strikes Back. So I kind of have a theory before we like really go in and like unpack this movie. Just kind of getting all of the bad stuff out of the way, which revolves around this love story, which is central to the movie. It's central to the character of Anakin Skywalker and his journey and his arc in this trilogy. Like, you can't just brush the romance aside and say like, okay, well that part sucked, but the rest of the movie, like, no, the centerpiece of the film is supposed to be that love story.
right,
I
yeah,
realized watching it this time, and I don't know, maybe I've realized it in the past, the biggest problem with this movie and its love story is that it sidelines Anakin and Padme and puts them in a box and says, watch them fall in love. Not through action, but just through sitting together in dimly lit rooms and falling in love. And it doesn't work. If they had been on an adventure, if the movie had opened with Anakin planning a trip to Tatooine to check on his mom and Padme insisting on going with him, and that's where the romance started to develop, maybe there were hints of it that were already there in the opening between the two of them, and they weren't so much like butting heads and acting awkward around each other. I think this could have worked. I don't think they have any levels of chemistry at all, but I think chemistry it could have developed if they had the material to do it. And I was watching a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, and Hayden Christensen's a pretty charming actor. In interviews, he looks like he's waiting for his big like teen heartthrob moment, and he's kind of got this sort of like, kind of bad boy kind of charm as he's talking. And I'm just sitting there like, oh god, just wait. A year from now, you're gonna regret ever being a part of this franchise. But at the time, like, Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen both had a lot of charm as young actors, and it just seems very weird that Lucas went out of his way to make this so melodramatic, so much of a soap opera, and pulling all of the fun out of watching a romance develop.
yeah. I think the mistake there was that he directed the movie. I think that was the mistake. The Empire love story between Han Solo and Princess Leia was well done because first you had two great actors, Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford, but you also had a director who was a veteran who understood the principles of acting and was able to get that performance out of those two actors. And that's
Yeah.
why that's why that love story is still revered to this day, because you had a director who was finally in tune with the human side of a story. Lucas is, for whatever reason, he's disconnected from that, and we see that in all his films. We see that in THX 1138. We see it well, kind of see it in American Graffiti, but he was a little bit, since it was a bit more grounded, and it was a closer to home, so he was able to, I guess, tap into that. But with Star Wars, especially when he did the prequels, I guess he was so far gone at this point in his career that he at this point he was the George Lucas, right? He was George Lucas, and no one wanted to say no to him. I'm pretty sure when it did, he pushed back, and then when he pushed back, it was like, well, it's your baby, so okay, you go ahead, do what you want, and it hurt the franchise, and it hurt his prospects to continue on being a good film director.
Yeah, for a filmmaker who obviously loves humanity, he doesn't seem to care much about humans.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem here. And also,
Yeah.
the weird thing about, soft spoken, aw shucks George Lucas is that when you watch the behind the scenes stuff, he's such an easygoing guy. He never raises his voice. He never looks like he's really that frustrated in any regard. It just seems like he refused to do any directing on the set. The idea basically was, guys, just come in, read the lines. I'm going to direct this movie in post anyway. We're just showing up to just get it in the camera so I can just, mess with it and tinker with it later in the editing room. And that's just not conducive to getting good performances out of actors.
Yeah. It kind of makes you think about how at that time Lucas was talking a lot about computer generated actors and like the idea that he could just remove the human element entirely.
Yeah.
And just like play with CGI characters.
It's weird. He removed the human element entirely from his human actors. Just sucked it out completely. It's very weird.
Yeah, I had the thought that like they didn't have chemistry. Like Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman, they had like negative chemistry.
Yes. They look like they kind of hate each other.
Yeah, yeah, and that scene. Oh my god, that scene when they're rolling around in the I guess the prairie, and they roll and then like she ends up on top of them and just stare at each other like awkwardly before the swipe transition happens.
Yeah.
Oh my god, man. I was like, dude, I can't believe that Lucas thought that that was a sweet scene to leave in the movie for audiences. It was just mind-boggling.
It's so unbelievably miscalculated because not only does it not work dramatically, it also doesn't work in the context of the like the overarching story that's being told. Like
Right,
you guys, like the Republic is on the verge of a major crisis where you have, separatist the separatist movement is dividing the Republic up. You have all of these things going on. You have attempts that are being made on Padme's life, and all of these moving parts that are going on. So the Jedi decide to send Anakin and Padme off to Naboo to just hang out together and just hope that Anakin's going to adhere to the principles of being a Jedi and not hook up with her. I mean, it seems like they were kind of pushing him to do that, is kind of the impression I got. Like, how do you guys not see what's going on here? Obviously Obi-Wan sees it, and it's
Yeah.
weird that they just encourage it.
Well, they are old and out of touch.
Yes, it's true. Okay, so, before we get into the movie, there are a couple points I wanted to talk about, just kind of going in and just kind of get it out there. The criticisms about the CGI. I know that's like one of the biggest issues that people have with this movie. And it's still really problematic watching it now. But I think that going through the movie and also going through some of the behind the scenes stuff, I'm kind of blown away that the movie actually looks as good as it does, considering that it was basically innovating new technologies that had never been done before. And whether it's necessarily successful at it, the fact that Lucas pioneered digital filmmaking and just put more CGI characters in a movie than had ever been done before, I kind of feel like the complaints about it being CGI heavy are kind of cliche at this point because so many movies, I think, adopted a lot of the techniques of this movie and the prequels in general. And just movies kind of look like this now. What did the CGI bug you guys as much this time?
it did for me.
It
Yeah,
did.
and that's the double edged sword of being the trailblazer, right?
Right,
You know,
right,
you're the first one to do it, which is a great. I mean, yeah, that is true. You're right. Nowadays, especially these days, I mean, backdrop green screens or blue screens, whatever, are a thing. You know, everyone uses them, and the technology has gotten so good that you can't even tell anymore. You can't tell
right,
at all that an actor walking in front of a city landscape in reality is he's the actor is walking in front of a green screen, but it's so good now that you can't tell. But since George Lucas did it back in 2002 when it was fairly new, it I was able to see it. Like that's the thing that took me out of the movie. It was like apparent that it was a digital backdrop. It didn't even look at least remotely realistic, I guess, because CGI is supposed to convince you that it's real, but in reality, it's not. So I guess that's the downside of being the first person to do it, is that you're the first one that uses the new technology that's not going to age well because in a few years it's going to become obsolete and be replaced with something better and faster. So maybe good kudos to Lucas for pushing it, but at the same time, it's like it sucks that it was in 2002 and not in 2010, or so.
That's true. That's a good point. And also, this movie does occasionally look like it was shot on an iPhone,
Yeah,
and that's another one of the issues. But it's also kind of this weird thing where I feel like I'm watching an experimental film, which is kind of
yeah,
weird for a Star Wars movie, where you'd think that making sure they were using state of the art technology that had been completely proven first would be the way to go. But Lucas is just like pulling out this technology that hasn't really been field tested yet. And he's making his Star Wars Episode 2 using this technology. And I don't know, maybe it's because like the nerd in me, just like, the cinephile nerd in me really loves those kind of, breakthroughs in technology and how it's shaped uh, filmmaking in the 20 years since. But yeah, it is weird. And when you have a lot of that digital compositing um on digital technology that is so outdated at this point, it's weird. I wonder if at some point they'll remaster this movie to somehow make it look like it was shot 4K or 8K or whatever, whatever K we're on at that point. But Joseph, did it bug you? Did the CGI, the digital quality of it bug you at all?
Actually, no, but like I do think that it's kind of at a disadvantage due to the fact that it was basically like the first major film shot digitally. However, I think the subject matter they choose to show in the movie kind of saves it. There's nothing like too obviously like nothing really throws me into the uncanny valley in this movie.
Well, you've also been watching a lot of Clone Wars.
That's true. I'm very biased.
That is a weird thing that happened for me. Before I watched Clone Wars, I was always so pulled out of the episode 2 and 3 because of the stark digital contrast between those two films and the obvious like celluloid look of the first 4 movies. But after getting into Clone Wars, I don't know, the prequels look so much like Clone Wars and vice versa that I don't know, I don't really notice it as much anymore.
Yeah, it's like you see these battle droids, you see those ships, you're like, okay, it's gonna be kind of CGI-y.
Yeah, right.
That's what it's about.
So, Julius, you got to watch Clone Wars. It might help you like episode 2.
No, nothing will make me like episode 2. I'll probably enjoy the show, but not the movie, because I'm sure the shows are written by a lot more competent writers and directors, and directed by competent directors, and that's why the show is successful even to this day. I was really surprised how many people love the show. Even my coworker's husband talked to me about it. He tells me how much he loves it. He's been watching it for years, and now you tell me, and my other friends are telling me, and so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give this a shot. I got Disney Plus, so I'll give it a look see.
As long as you go into it with the understanding and the acceptance that it is made for children.
No, yeah, for
and
sure.
You don't expect something that is even close to, say, Mandalorian in terms of its tone. It's very much geared towards kids. And you do have like a lot of rough patches within the first few seasons, but once it kind of gets going, like in the back half of the show, there's a lot of really great stuff in there. And that's really when I think like Dave Filoni's involvement really starts to shine. And he's become kind of like the new George Lucas in terms of steering the ship with Lucasfilm. So, and a lot of it starts in the Clone Wars. And I think that Filoni himself has tried to use Clone Wars and use a lot of this prequel era stuff that he's been a part of to make the prequels better. And it's worked. It's made me like the prequels a lot more than I did, say, 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's as long as we're on the subject of the Clone Wars, a lot of the problems that I had with this movie and with the character of Anakin Skywalker, which was a big part of the problems with this movie, that's not a factor in the Clone Wars because he's written and performed in a much more like sympathetic way. Like he has kind of the same character flaws, but his character is more balanced.
It's to the point where once you get used to the storytelling in the Clone Wars, you start to look at the midsection, the second act of Attack of the Clones, where we separate the heroes, as being like kind of 2 subpar arcs on Clone Wars. They're just like, if you got that on Clone Wars, you'd be like, oh yeah, that was a rough, 3 episode stretch in the middle of season 2 when, Anakin is falling in love with Padme, but then you move on to something else. It's just that in Attack of the Clones, you don't really move on to something else until Act 3 when you have, Geonosis. And when like your B plot where Obi-Wan is investigating the whole, the stuff on Camino, like when that overshadows the central love story as being so much more engaging and entertaining, you have major story problems. And this film, I think, of the 6 initial Star Wars episodes, is the one that really falls apart in the second act, more so than any other Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I was very surprised, on rewatch, to realize that this movie that I was so hyped up about as a teenager, it's like, this is easily the worst of the first 6 for me.
It's kind of weird when you come to that, that realization, especially when I remember that feeling when the movie came out in 2002, and obviously, Julius, I didn't know you back when Attack of the Clones came out, but everyone I knew, adult, child, most people on the internet thought that arena fight at the end and Yoda coming out with the lightsaber was the coolest shit of all time. Like, most people would have argued that was the greatest thing. It wasn't until I think 6 months to a year later that I started to really hear the backlash towards it. And that's when I really understood, like, oh, sometimes when you give people everything that they want, it's a problem because you realize, oh shit, I didn't actually want to ever see that.
Well, the Yoda scene was great. That I will say that the Yoda fight scene against
Oh, so
Dooku.
you're pro Yoda's lightsaber battle.
Oh yeah, that was I was all about that because the reason why I was all about that was because it was peak Star Wars. It was like that's Star Wars. That's what I wanted to see, George. I wanted to see Yoda jump around, flipping around with the lightsaber. And why did you have? I mean, the Jedi stuff was hit or miss, right? It was. I would say lukewarm. I would say lukewarm. I like the fact that the chase scene in Coruscant, in the beginning of the movie was great. That was fantastic. Um, but the thing that bothered me was their incompetence of determining what's going on in the Republic. Right? They should have known. They should have sensed the dark side. I guess is what I'm trying to tell you.
Hey, Yoda says the dark side clouds everything. Impossible to see the future is. So he basically admits to Palpatine, the Sith Lord that is sitting right in front of him, that the Jedi are morons. It's right there in the opening scene. Yoda says, "We're not powerful anymore. We can't sense the dark side." And Palpatine's like, "Yeah, no shit."
Okay, I can accept that, but
You don't have to accept it. It's actually really not very well communicated, but
that's it right there. Right there.
Yeah, I have the same issue because I can't put my finger on, like, that's one of my biggest issues, especially in trying to figure out like my favorite character in this movie, is that every character in this movie is incompetent. I like the prequels, but part of liking the prequels means that I have to accept that the main characters, the protagonists, are all really stupid. And that's kind of step one, I think, in embracing the prequels and kind of understanding them and meeting them on their level.
Yeah, there's this thing that happens when a story is kind of told like not as well as it could be, where you carefully study the plot after the fact and you realize like, wait a minute, there's actually like this actually makes sense. Like I could think of like The Matrix 3 is kind of like that, where like if you actually like get all the details straight, you're like, oh, this is actually an interesting story in here somewhere. But I watched the movie and I didn't even realize that.
Yes, I mean, gosh, the Matrix sequels are a great comparison to the prequels in terms of just, I think, also like audience backlash, and for good reason. I think that as much as I appreciate the Matrix sequels, they really are subverting expectations in a way that maybe wasn't intended. You know, like, it doesn't make it's interesting because you're challenging what came before, but you're not really doing it in a way that audiences respond to. So is it successful? That's the big question. Yeah, it made money, but if nobody really cares about it or talks about it afterwards, was it the right decision? And that's, an issue with the Matrix sequels, and it's an issue with the prequels as well, that yes, even though Lucas was doing a whole bunch of stuff that we didn't expect him to do and wasn't really like, what I would have imagined would have been like the conventional way to go, it's still like not good.
It's what the writers would say. The idea is there, the story is there, the execution was terrible.
I almost feel like, if you squint from far away, it makes sense. It's like it's supposed to be a love story set against the backdrop of this like galactic war unfolding, but it's like told in this linear way where it's like, okay, let's just get this love story out of the way, like you said, in a box, and then the third act is where like the fighting breaks up, and it's like if there had been some story for Anakin and Padme to actually run through, that would have been nice.
First of all, I think that when it comes to the love story is obviously bad, but there is a key moment where it becomes insulting, and I'll wait until we get there. But it also marks the point where we move into Act 3, and I think that my takeaway from this viewing was that this movie really has a strong first and third act. Like, I actually really enjoy the movie. During the entire first act, which takes place on Coruscant, is actually kind of a blast. I like the politics. I like the scenes with Palpatine. I love that Coruscant chase, even though it is very dated. It's still really cool. I love, like, the chase through through the sky, and through all through all the buildings and everything. And then also when it goes to the ground level at night, I was just like, oh man, I really wish we had more movies that were set, in on Coruscant. What did you guys think of the chase? Because this is kind of like, Lucas likes to throw in, his big chase set pieces into his movies. What did you guys think of it?
I loved it. I as much as I hate this movie, that's one sequence where I was like, yeah, this is I'm all about this, you know. And even though like in you're right, it did age, it didn't age too well. Also, the acting wasn't good because a lot of the acting seemed, it reminded me of like those old '30s movies where the actor is like in the foreground holding on to something, and the director is just saying like, okay, now move. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's what I felt like when I was watching it. I was like, I felt like they're just like stiff. They don't know what to do.
There's a
They don't know how to
disconnect.
act. Yeah, and that was the only complaint about it. But the rest, the whole sequence as a whole, like the chasing was great. I loved it. Again, peak Star Wars for me. And again, going back, I always like to say this: Lucas is a great action director. Like, he really is good directing action. It's just he falls flat with the actors and the acting.
Joseph, what'd you think of the chase?
Coruscant is a great location. It's just like full of possibilities. Like I just want more time to explore Coruscant. So it was a really cool chase.
I think it really is kind of the high point of the movie, and I don't know, like, even in addition to that chase, I don't know, I just really dig, like you said, the possibilities seem endless on Coruscant, and I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
when we leave Coruscant, it's like, why did we leave the place where it felt like the plot of this movie was cooking, and then it just kind of like dies out.
I think the thing that's interesting about Coruscant as a location is that it's just this like three-dimensional maze that goes in every direction. There's people everywhere. There's like I think it's supposed to be 1 trillion individuals on Coruscant. If your character is moving through this environment, it's like anything could happen. Like, did you ever play Star Wars Racer? It was like the pod racing game.
I think that I did. I just have no real memory of it.
It had one track that was set on Coruscant, and it was like underground, and you're just like flying
Oh
through
wow,
this like cyberpunk, like it was like deep underground, so you don't even see the sky at all. It's like subterranean.
that's really cool.
Yeah, that's what Coruscant is fun for.
I also thought it was cool when they go into the bar and you see like people betting on pod races in the background and like other racing, and it kind of just made me think like, oh, it's interesting that you have these systems in the outer rim that are kind of like not really involved in the Republic, and like maybe you have people there that take advantage of that, and they hold like pod racing, which is maybe like outlawed in the proper Republic, but you still have people in the Republic capital who are like making money betting on those illegal races.
Yeah,
I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting.
the Star Wars galaxy has a Wild West, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of Tatooine, right?
Yeah,
In a way. So we open with the assassination attempt on Padme, which is kind of a weird scene. Just kind of getting used to the new technology and everything. The explosion looks a little strange. I don't know. Like that's one moment where I was like, okay, we're dealing with new technology here. It really kind of shows in the like the explosion, the aftermath of it. So then you have the scene with Palpatine where he's talking about the creation of the military and how he's just sort of like doesn't really want to have to accept these emergency powers because he loves democracy so much. And from the get go, just like if you know what's going on, if you're focusing on what's going on in the background with Palpatine, it is delightful to watch him in every scene just play this role perfectly.
yeah. Honestly, Palpatine has kind of like like if you look at the whole of what he's doing over the years, he's kind of like this like model train enthusiast, and he's just like,
Mm,
okay, if I talk to
yeah.
this guy over here, and I'll have them build an army over there, and then we'll get these guys fighting together. And it's like it's a lot of work, man.
If you really consider all of the pieces that he's put on the board, he's playing every side against each other, and with the intention of just basically coming in at the very end and saying, "Oh wow, look at this huge crisis. I better come in and be emperor and save everyone." It's beautiful. It's actually really impressive. It makes me love his character even though he's, the epitome of villains.
Yeah, and throughout the prequels, he's just there, and he's talking to all the heroes and the main characters, and he's just like doing what he's doing, and it's just like it's unrelated to like the characters, and I don't know, it's just always working in the background.
And the weird thing too is that the Jedi make these little comments about how, oh, you can't trust politicians and they seem a little iffy about Palpatine, but they're not doing anything about it.
That's kind of the interesting thing about how Palpatine corrupts people, because like in Dooku's case, he left the Jedi Order because he was disillusioned with the Galactic Senate and the corruption there. But it's like, and then he joined Palpatine, even though Palpatine is the corruption in the Galactic Senate, you know?
It's, I was thinking about this a lot while watching this film, that in a lot of ways I was starting to get the impression that the way that Dooku is talking to Obi-Wan when he's captured, it's almost like he's basically saying like, look, I didn't really turn to the dark side. I pretended to turn, bro. Like, I'm not actually on the dark side. I just dipped my toe in so that I can fix the Republic. But it's like, no, you're far gone. You're like all in on the dark side. You just don't even know it. You think that you're playing against Sidious, but he's actually playing you against yourself.
It's a lot of self-deception in the Sith on the dark side.
Yeah, and Palpatine really like takes advantage of that with I think with characters who are completely delusional about the role that they're playing. It's really fun. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of complaints, about this film back when it came out, and even now that unless you've watched these movies a ton of times, like we have, or you're a super fan, it's impossible to see this. It's impossible to understand what's going on, what level of deception is happening, or understanding, which army belongs to what, who's the bad guy. It is not communicated very well in the story. It's when you understand, the broader Star Wars universe that you start to, understand how all of that stuff, all the pieces kind of fell into place.
Yeah, and I think one moment where you can kind of see that in action is when the Republic Army is introduced, and they're shown kind of like lining up and getting into their ships, and you hear the Imperial March playing, and it feels like it's supposed to be this big moment of like realization of what has happened, but it doesn't really like ring true that much, because the story is like muddled and it hasn't been dramatized, fleshed out enough,
Which is such a shame, because if you explain it on paper to somebody, if you say like, oh, so it turns out the clones were actually kind of created by the Sith, but somebody pretending to be part of the Republic, to be an army for the Republic, that they end up using, that kind of slips them further into becoming an empire. That's actually like really brilliant storytelling. It's just like not communicated very well in the film itself.
Too many explosions.
Michael Bay would be proud.
Yeah, there's no real explosions though. They're all CGI explosions. I think Michael Bay would.
That's right. Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, he likes to go out there and actually blow shit up.
See, even Michael Bay went practical with the explosions.
Yeah. So, question, guys, how did Jar Jar become a senator? Is this a big example of why the Republic is broken? Like, how did this happen? I understand letting a Gungan represent Naboo in some capacity, but why did they pick Jar Jar?
Are you kidding? I mean, he's been showing off his diplomatic skills since episode 1, when he brought the Naboo and the Gungans together, leading to the critical third act.
There you go. Yeah, that's it.
Didn't he kind of like stumble into that diplomacy though? Like,
maybe the Jedi realized that he had like a force sensitive, talent where, oh, he's a bumbling idiot, but it's force related, so therefore everything will work out in the end.
Either that, or Palpatine is like, this guy's an idiot, and he's a very useful idiot. I love the scene where he's like, I mean, who would just, nominate to give me these emergency powers? And it cuts to Jar Jar Binks, and it's like, okay, I know that Lucas didn't intend this when he made the Phantom Menace, but this is a great way to make the character, to give the character an overarching purpose, in the trilogy, which is just, to help undermine democracy.
Like, for better or worse, Jar Jar has this thing where he like fails upwards, and it's actually like, when like him in the third act of Phantom Menace is actually pretty funny to see how it's like, even though this guy is like completely stupid, like he just somehow always manages to fumble into the best possible outcome. So it's like actually true to his character for him to fail even further upwards into the Galactic Senate.
Can you imagine being like Captain Tarples in the beginning of the Phantom Menace, who apprehends Jar Jar, takes him to Boss Nass? This guy has been banished from the Gungans, and then he comes back, and Boss Nass just makes him a general. And you're like, Captain Tarples, and you're like, I'm a career guy. I've been doing this forever, and they give this guy general, and then 10 years later, he's the senator. Yeah, that's frustrating. trying to think if there's anything else that happened that was interesting in that first act. Oh, we completely glossed over Dexter Jetster and Dexter's Diner. Guys,
Oh God.
there's like a whole other movie taking place in Dexter's Diner. I don't know if it's a movie that I want to see necessarily, but it
I
yeah,
don't.
very
I don't.
interesting choices made in that scene.
Yeah, and it's once again it's Lucas's love of the '50s Americana. You know, that '50s diner, which was absolutely just like. Uh, couldn't you like veil it a little better, George? Could you not do it on the nose? Can we just like make it look like maybe like a resemble a '50s diner, but not really with its own Star Wars twist? But it's a straight up '50s diner. Get straight up, like no doubt about it.
Yeah.
The droid waitress,
Mm-hmm.
and of course the cook who kind of had like a New York Boston accent, kind of. It was just atrociously bad all around that scene.
I kind of liked it. I don't know. It kind of felt like Lucas taking a chance on something, and I just think it's one of those things where if maybe the technology and the CGI had been a little bit better, it would have worked a little bit. But I also don't even know if you really need that scene because
no, you didn't need that scene.
yeah, I was watching some of the deleted scenes, and there's a deleted scene where Obi-Wan goes to I think these analysis droids to get the dart looked at,
Oh,
and they don't
right,
really know
yeah.
what it is, and that's when he's like, "Oh, I'll go see my friend Dexter," and it's like, why couldn't the analysis droids just figure it out? Like they work for Jedi, they're built by Jedi. Like you don't really need to go to Dexter's Diner, and this is already a long film, so we probably could have lost that.
Yeah, and on top of that, you find out that it was a Jedi, or they used a Jedi to build the army, right? Because he said like, "Oh yeah, Master someone I forget the name of the Jedi."
Sifo Dyas.
So it should, yeah, Sifo Dyas. That would have been the records. That would have been in the records as like, "Hey, what's this? Sifo Dyas greenlit this technology."
They erased it.
Then she should have seen that it was erased. Oh, someone erased it. Curiouser and curiouser. In other words, I guess what I'm trying to say is, as a writer, I'm just thinking as a writer here. So, if you want to create like an element of mystery, then that's what Lucas should have written it as. So that way, it could naturally lead to that scene with Dexter. And let me just apologize. Now. I really do hate this movie, guys. I apologize for
You're
bashing
struggling.
it. I'm gonna bash it throughout this whole episode because there's just hardly anything good about this movie. And yeah. So I apologize, guys. But this is the only movie where it's gonna be this bad. This is the darkest it gets for Julius Freeman.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what Obi-Wan's mission is, because this is where I think I'm going to sleep every time Anakin and Padme pop up on screen, and we've kind of we've talked probably enough about how bad that is, and we don't really need to keep talking about it, even though it is so fun to make fun of. But the stuff with Obi-Wan, even though I don't necessarily think it definitely shouldn't be the best thing in the movie during the second act, but it is the best thing in the movie. And so yeah, while I'm sleeping through the Anakin and Padme love scenes, every time we cut back to Obi-Wan, there's some really interesting stuff going on. And starting with Kamino, which is a pretty striking planet. I really dig the whole like water planet, constantly raining. The Kaminoan aliens are pretty cool looking, and as you're learning about these clones, it's and which is kind of leading us to Jango Fett. This is I don't know, it's fun. This is where I think the movie kind of redeems itself.
Yeah, I think this is one of the more sci-fi subplots that Star Wars has to offer, and I can think of like a lot of other franchises that have done like the water planet. So
Yeah.
like I always think it's interesting to when Star Wars has its own take on a certain trope or something like that, and it has this really like distinctive art style that kind of sets it apart from other aspects of Star Wars too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, very much so. And I mean, even though like the performances are really awkward, I do like the stuff with like Jango and Boba, and I love the space fight between the two of them outside of Geonosis.
Yeah,
with
man,
the seismic charges are so awesome. I love that sound effect. It's one of my favorite sound effects in Star Wars, is when those seismic charges go off and the sound cuts out for a second. then comes rumbling back in. It's very cool. Really, really love that.
Yeah, the only thing I wish they had in this is that if Django had the dark saber, but I know that it probably didn't exist at that time.
Yeah, technically it would have existed in canon, but it didn't exist in real life yet. I don't think it had been invented for the franchise at that point. Yeah, so that basically leads Obi-Wan to Geonosis, where he ends up getting captured, and Dooku propositions for him to join him, and he talks about training Qui-Gon. And what did you guys think of Count Dooku in general?
Christopher Lee is a national treasure. Was a
Sure,
national
yeah.
treasure. Great actor, great part for him. I just wish the name. I just wish his name wasn't Count Dooku. When I first heard the name in the theater when I watched it all those years ago, I was like, what was his name? Like Dooku. It's like Dooku? What the fuck? Like, oh my god, man. That was one of those things where I was like, okay, all right, just go with it. Just go with it, Julius. Just go with it. Don't worry about it. But that's my only complaint is the name. But the character was top notch for me.
Yeah, in the behind the scenes stuff, whenever Christopher Lee talks about him, he refers to him as Count Dooku, which sounds really great in his Christopher Lee accent.
There you go.
But yeah, I'm sure whenever someone was like, "Oh, Count Dooku," he's like, please don't pronounce it that way. I'm gonna walk off the set if you do that. I will not play a character named Dooku."
Yeah, he's a really cool character.
He is. Yeah, I agree.
In that he's like he's like an independent thinker from both the Jedi and kind of the Sith, in that like his form of evil is much different than Darth Sidious's.
I wish there was more of him and more exploration of his character in this movie. I think if we had begun the film with him being in play instead of waiting until more than halfway through the film to bring him in, he would have been a great contrast to Darth Maul. Somebody who doesn't have the physicality of Darth Maul, but has much larger intellect and wisdom than Darth Maul did. But the fact that he doesn't come in until the very end makes him feel a little bit like an afterthought, and not really taking the time to develop who he is in this story just also cripples this movie. It makes him seem kind of like a tossed off villain, which it's a problem in the storytelling with this film and with Phantom Menace, that these characters aren't properly dished out and developed throughout the story.
Yeah, like I looked at like Dooku's total screen time. It's not very much. Like they could have easily like doubled that.
Definitely, absolutely. So in the meantime, we have Anakin, who goes back to Tatooine to investigate whether his dreams about his mother are actually happening. What do you guys think of some of these dream sequences with Anakin having nightmares? And did you guys think it was as awkwardly shot as I did?
No. Oh my god.
Yeah, no, Mom, no. It's very weird. Very weirdly shot. Very, very weirdly executed. And weird that a once queen and now senator is sort of like entertaining this bullshit of him following his dreams to Tatooine. And she's not giving in to her attraction to him, but she's like willing to follow him on his whims, especially with, bounty hunters and the like that are after her. I don't know. Like, I find this whole thing like very flimsy. Obviously it's, it's not great the way it's executed, but yeah, the whole bit of him going back to Tatooine and getting there right before his mom dies, the timing of it, it's really poor storytelling. And I have heard, I think that either it was explored in the expanded universe or it was hinted at in there, that maybe Palpatine and Dooku were the ones that orchestrated things with the Tusken Raiders to kidnap Shmi to trigger the nightmares, which, that makes a whole lot more sense. I can buy that, but I wish it was actually in the movie.
Yeah, and so nightmares like play a big role in Anakin's story, both here and in Revenge of the Sith. And it was like kind of my implied understanding that like Palpatine was like force doing stuff to like implant those dreams in him,
force
or whatever.
Doing stuff.
I don't know what is like the name of that, but he's like, giving him these dreams to like kind of unsettle him and like manipulate him and stuff.
Yeah, it's I wish it was established in the film.
Yeah, like what if there was a scene where like Sidious had like a crystal ball and he was like, ooh, like some force stuff.
And he kind of has that in Clone Wars, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if you're that far into it. I think it's close to the very end of the series where you see some of Sidious's like crystal ball type of stuff, his dark magic that he's using. And I mean, honestly, if everything in the prequels is being like everything with the downfall of Anakin Skywalker's character is being orchestrated by Palpatine, setting things up this way, that would be really brilliant if it was actually there in the movie. And it would make a whole lot of this shit make way more sense in the process. But instead, it just seems like clumsy storytelling.
Instead, his menace is only phantom.
It's there in the title, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Also, if you owned a bitchy droid and that droid was then taken away by the guy who becomes Darth Vader, and the guy that becomes Darth Vader is actually the one who built it, don't you think you'd recognize that droid like a couple decades later when Jawas are trying to sell it back to you? I find it very weird that Baru and Lars are just like, yeah, I guess they all just sound like Anthony Daniels and they complain a lot.
People don't care about droids. They're just like, whatever, you're a washing machine to me.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what it sounds like. That's what it looks like, right? So I noticed with droids, no one really cares about any droids except for R2.
It's because he just speaks in boops and bleeps. He's cute.
Beeps. It's cute. Yeah, that makes sense.
He could be complaining the whole time in his beeps. He's like wondering why nobody understands. And it's like, oh, you're so cute, R2. And he's like, no, I hate this. Let me take a day off, guys. It's bullshit. Okay, so let's just cut ahead to the big arena fight. And to me, where this movie falls apart and only is barely able to get put back together during this fight is when Padme reveals that she loves Anakin, and it's the sweeping, beautiful across the stars John Williams music that's coming in, and they kiss and the camera goes through that doorway and it's beautifully executed. But it's one of the worst moments in Star Wars to me because I can't understand how the turning point for her that made her finally give in was when she finds out that Anakin murdered not just the men, but the women and the children. He hates them. He went and committed a genocide on an entire camp of Tusken Raiders. And she's like, you know what? I love you. You're my guy. I just want you to know that before we die. Yeah. That's just mind-boggling to me. Terrible character work. A real disservice to Natalie Portman and the Queen Amidala character.
Yeah, because her character is often like in Phantom Menace and here too, and in the next film, she's an activist. She's like actively working for democracy, and obviously she's not like a figurehead queen. She's somebody who's really invested in her people. So for her to be like, well, like you did slaughter like a whole camp of Tusken Raiders, but whatever. It doesn't line up with the character that she's been portrayed as.
It's such a weird choice. And just to underline it, like right before they go out to fight, she's like, I truly, deeply love you. It's like, I don't want this to be ambiguous at all. Just in case, our back and forth throughout the movie and our lack of chemistry confuse the audience, I need to really underline it with a Sharpie. I truly, madly, deeply love you now. And that's all I have to do, right? That expresses everything I need to express, right? It's just, yeah, like you were saying, Julius, it's telling and not showing. You're telling the audience like, okay, now they love each other. Now they're committed. And you don't buy it for a second.
Not even for a second. And once again, it boils down to terrible writing. George Lucas and who was his writing partner in this film?
Jonathan Hale.
Jonathan Hale.
I believe a writer who worked on the Young Indiana Jones.
So yeah, yes, man, for sure. So yeah, it's one of those things where the creator of Star Wars single-handedly destroyed it as well. It's a very ironic, very I guess poetic justice, if you want to call it. But yeah, overall, like this inconsistency of characters, the terrible dialogue writing, that's all George Lucas. That's all his fault. That's there's no excuse for that. And at that point in your career, you should know better than to write horrendous dialogue. Or on top of that, maybe humble yourself a little bit and give it to a screenwriter who knows his stuff and go, hey, what do you think of this? And then hopefully, if the screenwriter has a set of a pair of balls, he will say, you know what, George, this is not good. This is not
Right.
good. You need to work. You need to fix this because this is terrible. You need to like
Yeah.
work on this. I'll be willing to help you, whatever. And if he had just done that, I think the movie would have been saved. If he had just done that little slight move of just simply handing the script to a trusted screenwriter who knows what he's doing, he or she is doing. Maybe why not hire a woman to write the script with you so she could write the love scenes properly.
This romance doesn't seem like it was written by anybody who's ever been in love in their life. In fact, they probably just they hate romance because it really feels that way.
Yeah, it does.
It has like icky cooties feel to it. It's yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because like, if it had been a good romance, like that would have really been a good step for Anakin's character and like would have really sealed in the tragedy of it.
Yes, I agree. It's to me, the thing I have to kind of reconcile with this film is that, like the Phantom Menace, there's a lot in it that I like. There's several sequences and set pieces and individual acts in these two films that I like. But the big problem is that Episode One should have been these two films put together. That's really, I think, how you fix these prequels is you take everything that's established in episode 1 and 2 and you put them into one movie, and you have the same actor portray Anakin. And that, I don't really like the whole, well, what if they did this, and what if you change that, and what if, what's done is done. But ultimately, I think that's why this film and the Phantom Menace don't quite work, they don't quite land, is because they do too much and too little. They do too much of stuff that you don't need and don't want and don't really serve the plot of this, an arc of this trilogy. And yeah, there's just a whole lot in there that you don't need, and not enough of the stuff that you need to get us to episode 3.
Yeah, it's interesting that they end up in a romance, but they start out as kids. That does kind of seem like a little bit too much in the wrong direction or something.
Yeah, I love the idea of opening with episode 1 and having Anakin and Padme be this age. Like, if they're kind of awkward and everything else, like in the early stages of this, it works. But trying to push their romance to finally come together in a terrible way at the very end of the second film in your trilogy, it's just like you don't have enough time to really even invest in this, even if the chemistry had really been there. You've got Anakin played by a completely different actor with completely different acting styles. Apparently, George Lucas wanted Anakin to have a James Dean intensity, which obviously didn't work.
I caught that.
But
I actually caught that.
But now, if you know that, if you hear that, you're like, okay, I understand what you're going for. It's wrong and it's not well executed, but it makes sense. You're going for this kind of melodramatic intensity, this rebel without a cause type of thing that it doesn't work in Star Wars. It really doesn't, and it certainly doesn't work with the way that he's constructing it here. But yeah, it does make a lot of sense.
I think it's like it's too far to go from like that the petulant like rage filled, passion filled teenager, but like it was pretty lighthearted at the beginning of the movie. Like if there was something in the plot where Anakin was being like set against the Jedi Council in some plot related way, that could be maybe like more of a way of like actually dramatizing his separateness from them and like his rebellious streak, or however you want to call it.
I mean, also too, just going back to the whole Tusken Raider massacre, it's so unnecessary. Why couldn't Anakin just save his mom, bring her back, and have her die at home, and then have Padme stop him when he's running out the door to go murder them, and be the thing that's like, no, Anakin, I love you. I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to destroy who you are, and just have him not do it, Be on the brink of doing it. He's got his lightsaber ready to go, but he like literally murders men, women, and children. It's irredeemable. Like, and to say that is the catalyst for their relationship now, the thing that makes them fall in love, it really kind of, it's the one thing about this trilogy that I can't justify. I can't work my way around that and say, well, if you look at it this way and that way, it works. It doesn't work. It nearly destroys the entire trilogy, in my opinion.
Maybe if there were like more happy times before the downfall, But yeah, it's like it starts with murder.
So okay, so the arena fight, I especially with the monsters, I love this shit.
Oof. Woof.
I think it's great. I'm into this. I love these big monsters and all of that. I love the puns, like what about Padme? She seems to be on top of things. Like I'm digging this stuff, This is the stuff with C3PO having his head swapped. Thought that shit sucked back when the movie came out. I like it a lot more now because it really feels like a Clone Wars bit. The part where 3PO is having his head dragged and he's like, this is such a drag. More of that, please. More dad jokes in Star Wars, please. Love it.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I definitely chuckled at that. The Geonosis fight is really great, and it's like 45 or 50 minutes or something like that. And there's a lot to it, and there's like a lot of different novel things, and there's a lot of the best elements that make Star Wars what it is.
Yes, it's a good chaser for all the shit that we just had to like drink while watching this this love story unfold, and then you have all of this stuff going. And I even like their like little like exchanges where what does he say? Is this what you call a diplomatic solution? And she says, no, I call this aggressive negotiation.
God.
Like to me, I wish there was more of that in the movie than them just being like, okay, we don't love each other, it's forbidden. Okay, no, now we love each other, and that's the love story.
See, there's like a little bit of sass and energy to that back and forth exchange that like it makes you feel like you're in a different movie all of a sudden. You're like, ooh, where did that come from? Like there's like a little bit of almost swagger to that like the rest of this movie absolutely does not have. This is like 8th grade awkwardness or something.
Yes. It's a glimpse at what the movie could have been, I think. And it's way too little too late. So once Mace Windu comes in and has his little battle with Jango along with all the other Jedi, I mean, come on, guys. Like, this is catnip, at least for me. Like, does this work for you guys?
It didn't work for me.
He goes up to Jango and puts his lightsaber to his neck and says, this party's over. What more do you want? That's like, this is great shit to me.
It was way too cheesy. It was way, it felt flat. I didn't get goosebumps. I didn't be like, oh, I wasn't all like, oh, all right, here we go. It wasn't like that at all. At this point, I had already developed a bad taste in my mouth. I wanted to love this scene. I really did, guys. I really wanted, even when I was watching it last night, I was like, okay, all right, this is it. I know I can. Maybe I'm older. Maybe I can enjoy this now. And I watched it and I was like, nope. I still hate it. It was too cheesy. Those lines, like, you guys were discussing those like dad joke lines, and they were funny, but for me, they were funny because they were terrible, not because they were good. And I couldn't, man. I couldn't enjoy it. I didn't like it. It felt flat. The scenes, the whole thing was just like funny, but for the wrong reasons. The only saving grace was the Yoda fight against Dooku. That's the only saving grace of that whole entire like last final third act.
Okay, before we talk about that that whole fight sequence, because I have a lot of thoughts on it, and but we have the big Clone Wars battle, and from the arena fight to then the Jedi's coming into the arena, then to Yoda popping up, and you've got all the clones coming in. To me, this is where I feel like I think that Attack of the Clones finally starts to come together. This movie, near its 2-hour mark, is finally becoming a movie that I enjoy and that I like. I love the whole thing with Dooku underground and the revelation that he has the Death Star plans, and that Geonosis is sort of like ground zero for where all of that's beginning, and the implications that has for the rest of the series, even into the sequels and beyond. I mean, like, the seeds of it are being planted in this movie. And I remember the first time I saw Attack of the Clones in theaters and I saw him pull that out and it was the Death Star. Like, that was mind-blowing to me. Like, that to me is the kind of like little Easter eggs and nuggets that make the prequels worthwhile, when you see, oh, this is the beginning of something that's going to be, hugely consequential later on.
Yeah, totally. And I think it might be helpful to think about it in terms of like the context of when it came out, because as we've been saying, I've just watched like 10,000 hours of the Clone Wars, so
They're
so
not even
now
halfway through.
yeah, and like so now battles like Geonosis are just like bread and butter to me. But this was basically the first time that we saw the like fully functioning Jedi on screen in such a like wide scale melee. Like, I mean, in the original trilogy, you got one old geezer Jedi who dies immediately. Then you've got like a barely half trained new quasi Jedi who never even saw the old world. And and then you got like your friggin' Vader, freak of nature guy. So
Right,
so
right.
like this is like the old school, like when the Republic was still functioning. This is what Jedi could get up to. You had this massive battle, where you got just like hundreds of lightsaber users and Force users, and it was like the first time we got to see that in all of its CGI glory, and it works, I think.
Yeah, I think it still does. I think all of that stuff, even with the questionable CGI, the questionable digital filmmaking, it still works for me. Like I started to get really hyped up during those scenes, and um, then we get to the duel with Dooku, and I think I've made peace with Yoda and his lightsaber. It is what it is. I'm okay with it. The reason why I think this is my least favorite lightsaber fight in all of Star Wars is because of how easily and ridiculously Obi-Wan and Anakin are put out of commission. Like, Obi-Wan gets a cut on the arm and the leg and he can't move now. He's paralyzed. He's just going to sit there and like let shit fall on top of him. Anakin gets his arm cut off and like he can't focus on the force to wake up out of that. Like they both basically go to sleep. George Lucas is like, it's really terrible directing and blocking. It's like, okay, I don't need these guys. I just want to have my CGI Yoda fighting a CGI Dooku, and I'm going to put my two characters who can obviously face off against Dooku. I'm going to put them off to the side and just have them completely out of it for a while. And I don't buy it at all.
The duel is definitely not the strongest part of this act 3, but and it's like it's such a shame. It's probably like, yeah, like the worst lightsaber fight in the first 6 movies, because in the original trilogy you have like a lot of story stuff going on while the lightsaber fights are happening, and then episode 1 has the Duel of the Fates, which is like really like grand and really well done. And I was kind of surprised by that when I rewatched Phantom Menace recently, but that sequence really holds up and has like a structure to it that this lightsaber fight doesn't really, and it doesn't have like the same weight either because they fight to a draw basically. Anakin's down one arm, but
Yeah,
it's I guess it's nice as like this kind of like appetizer plate of all the various stuff that Star Wars can offer in the third act here, because like, okay, you got creatures, you're fighting
mm-hmm.
creatures, and that's great. And then you've got like lightsaber fights, you've got like gun duels, you've got the spaceships and the landing craft. Like it's all here piece by piece in different scenarios. It's just, this is what Star Wars can offer.
Definitely. And that's why this whole sequence doesn't kill it for me. Like I can still watch it and enjoy it. And I mean, I got to be honest, like I know that Yoda wielding a lightsaber is a real sticking point in the Star Wars community. There's a lot of people that really hate it. It's a little bit of a mixed bag in its execution, but it's fun. I don't know. I kind of enjoy it. Julius, you said that you really liked this sequence. Can you please explain why?
I didn't like it. I loved it.
Oh, okay. Please, this is your moment to explain to us why.
Well, because it was, what? How many years before the Empire, the original trilogy, did this take place? 20 years before.
Yes, this is I believe 22 years before the Battle of Yavin. Yes.
So Yoda still has some shoot spot to him, right? And so he stepped up when the Republic needed him, and he fought off a badass in Count Dooku. And I, as much as people didn't like it, because I think because it was CGI heavy, I didn't mind it at all because I wanted to see Yoda like that, doing the flips, just going crazy. Like a character at that size would move like that, especially if he's a Jedi Master. So, once again, I make no secret about it. Jedi, the Jedi are one of my favorite characters developed ever created in cinema history, and I want to see more of that. And the lightsaber duel, but going adding to what Joseph said earlier about this particular lightsaber duel between Dooku and Anakin and Obi-Wan, you're right, it fell flat. It didn't have the same, like he said, weight.
Yeah.
That really hurt the movie, in my opinion, because that's what people want to see. That's when you see Star Wars. They want to see a great lightsaber duel, and he robbed Star Wars fans of that. And but when it came down to Yoda, it was perfect. It was spot on. I thought that was a perfect lightsaber duel, and unfortunately, it didn't save the movie for me. It just came too late. It was at the closer to the end, and we didn't get to see too much Jedi in action as I had hoped. But yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I think that for me, I don't love it, but I don't dislike it. And I certainly think that a lot of, usually people point the Yoda sequence out, the Yoda
Right.
Dooku battle
Yeah.
as being why the prequels suck. And I feel like, no, there are plenty of other things you can point out.
Yeah.
I actually
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
enjoy this. And I also, really quick too, the lightsabers in this movie are off the hook. There's some fucking amazing lightsaber designs in this movie.
Yeah.
Dooku's
Yeah.
lightsaber is really cool looking. I like Yoda's little
Yeah.
lightsaber. Mace Windu maybe has the coolest lightsaber I've ever seen. Like that
Purple, man.
is, it's not just purple, but like I love the hilt of that lightsaber. It's all gold, and it's just a really cool looking lightsaber.
It doesn't say bad motherfucker on it, does it?
It actually does. No joke. He had it
Does
engraved
it?
on it. Yes, yes.
Oh, he had it engraved, yeah, but was it in the movie? Is the question.
Yeah, I think if you freeze frame and you zoom in really close, you can probably see it. All right, let's move on to awards and demerits. Starting with best ship or vehicle. Julius, you go first.
Just as a FYI, I don't have a lot of best in this for this movie, so you're gonna skip me over a few times in this list. But I do have a best ship or vehicle. Count Dooku ship was pretty dope.
I did think it was a pretty cool ship. I like. I don't
Yeah.
really understand its functions very much, but it's cool
Yeah.
looking, right?
Yeah.
I guess you could
Very
say that
cool
about the whole
looking.
movie, right? I don't
Yeah,
understand its functions, but some of it looks
yeah.
cool.
As long as it's cool looking, that's all that matters. But yeah, I dug it. It was unique. It was different, and that's the one thing I will give George kudos for is that he isn't afraid to take designs, out and outside the box, outside the comfort zone. And I like that he gave Count Dooku this ship. It's cool. It's a cool ship.
What'd you get, Joseph?
I again chose Amidala's ship, but she has a different ship in this movie.
That's true. Yeah.
In Phantom Menace, it was a J type. This is apparently an H type Nubian. It's a little narrower, but it's still like a very cool design. The all chrome finish of it is very cool.
You just really like shiny and chrome things, right?
Star Wars has some overlap with Fury Road for sure in that like the production design.
Yeah. A lot of detailed, crazy world building and a lot of shorthand visual storytelling of things, showing something that's weird that might have a backstory, but is only seen for a second. I love stuff like that. So yeah. I picked Obi-Wan's Starfighter.
Oh,
I thought
good
like
choice.
I love how it kind of looks like a Star Destroyer. It's in its shape, and I was going through some of the behind the scenes stuff, and apparently it was a choice by Lucas to make a lot of the Republic cruisers and stuff start to look a lot like what the Empire is turning into, and or a lot of what the Empire would become rather. And also the little insignia on the Starfighter, if I'm not mistaken, is the insignia for the Empire. And I just it's one thing that I didn't really expect back when I saw this movie, and one thing about it that I admire is that it's just interesting to see that the Republic just kind of became an empire. It wasn't like the clones came in and took over. It just became an empire. And I didn't expect that when the prequels were announced and when they were coming out. I really didn't expect that it was going to go in this direction. But I also really like the the little extension works with going through hyperdrive, that like it disconnects from that extension to go to the planet, and then it flies into that extension to go into hyperspace. Is just it's a really cool ship design. I dug it. So, best weapon, gadget, or tech, Joseph.
Seismic charges.
Yeah, same.
Super awesome.
Yeah, that just the sound design of it, and the visuals of the asteroids like falling apart and dissolving into pieces. Yeah, that was I wish it was in a better movie, because it's really cool. Liked it a lot. So that's what we all got?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was the only thing that stuck out to me. It was like that new that piece of technology, that weapon.
Best droid, Julius.
I didn't have one. I didn't pick one. Didn't have one.
Nobody qualified this time.
Nobody qualified. No one stuck out for me.
Do you have a demerit? Do you want to say, hey, like this sucked? You're like, all of it.
I'm trying not to go too negative. That's why I'd rather just have you skip me, because I don't want to add to the sludge
gotcha.
of this episode. So I just want to just skip me. I prefer, the whole if you got nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. I want to stick with that.
Okay, I'll just assume that your favorite droid was the hybrid battle droid C-3PO. Joseph, what was your favorite?
Battle droid 3PO was pretty fun,
right?
Like,
yeah,
I'm a lot of the time I'm not really into C-3PO, but I thought this was actually like really fun, and I thought it was really cool that they explored both combinations. So we got to see the battle droid who was like, something's wrong, I need maintenance. And then we got to see C-3PO being like, kill, like, die, Jedi scum.
I'm not going to say that it was executed very well, but I don't know. I kind of enjoyed it for what it was. I think a lot of that was also done late in post-production, that they decided to put all that stuff in. So I wonder if the actors watched the movie and like, when the fuck did we shoot this? This is so bizarre. I picked the super battle droids with their wrist blasters. Like, kind of a combination of the stuff I like about the battle droids and the stuff I like about the destroyer droids, just in like this, armored, thicker version of it. I thought they were pretty cool looking, personally.
That seems like a pretty Flash Gordon design.
Yeah. They're pretty cool. All right, best alien or creature. I picked... There's a lot of aliens and creatures in this movie, but I don't think many of them are very appealing. But I did like the Kaminoans. I thought the design of them were pretty cool. Did you get anything, Joseph, for that?
Yeah, I liked the creature that Obi-Wan fights in the arena on Geonosis.
Yeah,
but that looks kind of like a praying mantis. So apparently it's called an Acklay.
Acklay, cool. Yeah. I actually really like the design of all of those monsters. I love that kind of shit in these movies. So yeah, I was all about those creature designs. Did you get anything, Julius?
No, sorry. My worst alien creature was Dexter. That's the one for me. I was like, what the hell is this?
You didn't like his little mustache and everything? Like,
oh my god, man, this absolutely atrocious.
His greasy shirt with the little hole in it, like.
With the burgers, the grease stains.
Yeah.
They have burgers. I guess they have burgers in Star Wars, in the Star Wars universe.
I guess they've got 50 American diners in Star Wars,
Yeah, exactly.
Best location or planet. Did you get anything for that, Julius?
Yes, actually, I did. It was I forgot the name of it, but it's the planet where the cloners live at.
Oh yeah, that's the Camino.
Yeah, that was a great location. I really liked it. Like Joseph mentioned earlier, that was the most sci-fi part of Star Wars, which is what Star Wars is supposed to be. And so I dug that the look anyway, not so much the sequence, but the look of the setting. So I like that. That was my best location or planet pick.
What'd you get, Joseph?
I loved Naboo. I mean, for better or worse, this love story was like totally unbalanced, but they have this setting that's just it's more idyllic than the picture on a box of butter. It's just like, it's just beautiful. You got waterfalls, you got, this Spanish architecture. Just overall, I think Naboo is a great addition to the Star Wars universe.
What do you think of those big like termite bugs that Anakin rides in the meadows?
they look like overweight cows to me.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
They're space cows.
Yeah.
Hey, there's you know what? There's a lot of diversity on Naboo.
There is. Yeah, there is actually. You're right.
Um, yeah, we are just cruising through these.
Yeah. So yeah.
This is yeah, I guess this movie's a bit of a struggle for us. Okay, most satisfying kill or death. I'll go first on this one. Mace Windu killing Jango. The lead up to it, the build up. I remember the first time I saw that in the theater, I was just like, "Oh shit, I couldn't believe it." I can't believe this movie's rated PG and it features someone getting beheaded in front of their son. Like that is pretty gnarly when you
Yeah.
think about it.
Pretty gnarly. I can't believe he got away with that too.
Yeah, and I just yeah I love Django's like double blasters are just really cool and like you know he met his match with Mace Windu. So yeah, that was my most satisfying kill or death. Did you get one, Julius?
Yeah. The Star Wars franchise.
Was it satisfying though?
At that point, yeah. At the point of the end of the movie, yes, it was. It was a very satisfying kill or death.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
It's a joke. It's a joke. I'm joking, but no, I don't have anything really.
I that was actually pretty. That was pretty great. What'd you get, Joseph?
Django was definitely the most satisfying kill, and I think it's kind of interesting that it sets up Boba Fett's backstory to have like a very well deserved vendetta against the Jedi. So how good are these guys? I don't know.
I do want to say that even back when Attack of the Clones came out and I worshipped everything that Lucas did, there was still a part of me that thought that um, putting Boba Fett in this movie was like a misstep, and I didn't really understand its purpose or why, especially considering that he has one of the dumbest and most embarrassing deaths in like franchise movie history. It's just weird that people care about this character, but
He
after
has a great look, man.
he
He had a great
does,
look.
it says a lot about character design and how far that can get you just by the design of the
Yeah.
character. But also, I do think that having Clone Wars and especially Mandalorian has made this actually feel essential to the broader story. So I dig it now. I really like it now. But I do remember back then just being like, why is Boba Fett in this movie? It doesn't really make any sense, But yeah, it's cool. Best Force move, Julius.
I don't know if this is a force move per se, but I'm assuming it's a force move. Whenever Anakin jumped out of the speeder, when they're the Coruscant scene, he's like, kind of trying to look for the, I guess, land. He was hoping, I guess, to land on the assassin's, ship or little speeder. Was that a force move to be able to like sense? Okay, here it comes. I'm jumping off, and I'm gonna land the moment it like hits the point that I need to hit. So I guess that's a force move if you want to call it that, but I'm not sure exactly.
I think that the accuracy of each of the things that they have to do during that chase and their precision and falling on things, or even Obi-Wan like catching the lightsaber, I believe that's all because they're Jedi. There's no way you could do that if you weren't. Right, so yeah. I think that qualifies.
So I guess you could call it. Accuracy force move. That was something unique and new in Star Wars that I liked. Even though they didn't expand on that or explain how it worked, but that's why my pick.
What'd you get, Joseph?
I thought Dooku chopping off Anakin's arm and then like immediately like force pushing him was pretty badass.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, I actually forgot about that, but that was pretty neat. Like, yeah, chosen one my ass, slice, push, pretty well done. And because Anakin's such a shit in this movie, he deserves it. So
he's still pretty rough in this movie. He's still pretty young,
Mm-hmm. I picked Anakin using the Force to cut the pear to impress Padme because, look, if I had the Force and I was on a first date, I'd be using the shit out of that. Come on. That's like a parlor trick. That's you got to do it, right?
Yeah.
Respect. Yeah. I don't like anything going on really in that scene, but I was like, all right, I see that. That's some good game right there. Supporting character most deserving of their own spinoff, Joseph.
Dooku. I'd love to see some of his backstory in visual form, because I guess there's like some novels, and like we were saying earlier, Star Wars is so visual, like it needs to be visual media.
I don't think that for this, like, just the sake of the our podcast canon, if the books really exist, I certainly don't read them, so I guess that says a lot about my personal credibility here. But yeah, I'm not going to go read a Count Dooku book, but if somebody wanted to cast a like really great actor like Michael Fassbender to play a young Dooku, I am all in on
Ooh,
that. Please give me
that'd be
some
dope.
of that.
That'd be dope.
Yeah, I picked Dooku as well. Did you get anything, Julius?
Yeah, it's not really a character per se. It's a planet. Coruscant.
Okay,
I would
yeah.
love. I would love. I'm pretty sure they're going. to Hopefully, they do it. But it'd be cool if they do like a show, Disney Plus anyway. If they did a show revolving around the everyday happenings in Coruscant with the people who live there.
And what if it all takes place in Dexter's Diner?
If they upgrade his diner to look more Star Warsy, I guess, then yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with
I'm not okay with that. Let's in all future Star Wars Coruscant stuff. Let's not go back to Dexter's Diner. We know it's there, but we're just not going to go there anymore.
I when I was looking at Coruscant, the look of it, I was like, this would be kind of cool if they did like a noirish type of deal where maybe there's a PI, investigating these like murders or like disappearances, and involves like the Sith, maybe like wannabe Siths or wannabe Jedi's, that kind of deal. That'd be kind of cool. That'd be kind of cool show.
Yeah, if you think about it, Coruscant is basically like an excellent urban fantasy setting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and there's a way to do a kind of like a cyberpunk type of Blade Runner type of thing.
Yeah.
The whole thing should take place at night. I mean, maybe that's the problem with the Dexter scene, is that it takes place during the day. Like I don't know. I kind of feel like when you get down to the ground level of Coruscant, it should be so far down to the ground that like the sun doesn't even hit there. It's just all kind of like dark all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just my thought. All right.
No. That's a good point. That's it. That's where the downtrodden lives, and then the people who can see the sky and the sun are the elite, the upper class.
Yes.
The upper echelon.
Yeah, and I like the idea of them being resentful of the Jedi, just seeing them as political pawns, which it seems like they do. I just wish there was more of that in the movie,
right?
And in this trilogy. Okay, best character overall. Julius, you start us off.
Oh, Palpatine.
Okay,
hands down. Still, Palpatine, just the schemings, the like you mentioned earlier, James, the whole like, well, you want to give me this power, cool, that's fine. I hate to take it, but I'll take it.
I love democracy.
Yeah, I love that. It has a Julius Caesar vibe to it too, where he says, I'm going to give the power back once this thing is settled and everything's fine again. I'm going to give this power back to the Republic, and of course that doesn't happen. So yeah, Palpatine all the way.
Did you get the same thing, Joseph?
I guess I'm standing Dooku pretty hard, but I just think he because like who's the other option? It would be like Obi-Wan basically, and I just even though Dooku has like much smaller of a role to play than Obi-Wan, I just thought his character was more interesting.
I got to be honest, I had the same issue because I don't like any of the characters in this movie. I think that anytime I come to the point where I'm like, okay, best character overall, I just think of something incompetent that they did, and it makes me go, I mean, even like whether it's Mace Windu, whether it's Jango, or even Count Dooku, who ultimately is just a pawn of Palpatine. That's why I ended up going with Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, because this guy is playing an elaborate chess game. He's playing three-dimensional chess on everybody, and he's kicking everyone's ass, and it's kind of beautiful to watch.
This guy fucks.
Literally, yeah. We'll find out for another show.
We'll get to that when we talk about the sequels.
Speaking of things that I need to see in the movie to believe. Anyways, all right. Best quote. I went with the only quote I think in this movie that is actually decent, which is, "The shroud of the dark side has fallen, begun the Clone Wars has." Even that one I feel like is a stretch, and there's so many terrible lines in this movie. So many. Almost every scene has a, not just a bad line, but like a embarrassing, cringy line that I don't think there's really anything in this movie that, or unless you guys want to prove me wrong. You guys got one?
Well, that is it's like attempting to be this really portentous line, but it's like it only works in retrospect if you're coming from the original trilogy and being like, "Ooh, the Clone Wars, what is that?" So it doesn't actually work for the characters in universe. But anyway, I don't know. I thought "This Party's Over" was like the best pithiest line, and it wasn't even said by like a major character, really. You know.
I mean, like that could kind of be a metaphor for the franchise, right? For Julius, this party's over.
Yeah. Exactly right. Well played, James. Well played. I have a worst quote, not a best quote, because I really can't find
I got
anything.
plenty of those.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We can start with the script. I'm just gonna read the script, guys.
Well, he says it over and over again, Obi-Wan, when he says, "I hate it when he does that."
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah,
that was my quote where I was like, "Oh, brother, like seriously, we've come to this."
The one line I hate in this movie is the "Why do I get the feeling that you're gonna be the death of me?"
yeah. When that line came up, I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess, you know."
You know what? To me, that's a line that sort of disproves. Basically, Luke is saying that the way to watch this franchise is in episode order. Like, do you watch episode 2 and hear that line, and then by the time you get to A New Hope, you're like, oh wow, there was some foreshadowing there. Like, no, it's really dumb, and it only exists
Yeah.
as a terrible fan service line. It's just it's the kind of stuff you'd expect in a Disney Star Wars and
Right.
not a Lucas Star Wars, and really feels out of place. All right, peak Star Wars moment. Do you have one, Julius?
Yeah. The credits.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. I would. All jokes aside, the Yoda lightsaber scene
Okay.
was peak Star Wars moment for me.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
My peak Star Wars moment was also a Yoda moment, but it was actually the scene where Obi-Wan goes to him for help, and they pull up the star map and talk to the younglings, and talk about
Oh yeah.
that. That was some great Yoda moments, and it was like kind of like the dreamiest part of the movie, and it was just fun.
There definitely are moments in this movie that are really beautifully done with the CGI and the special effects, and most of this movie is CGI anyway, and that's definitely one of those moments where the movie slows down for a second, and it's cheesy, but the music is beautiful and the execution of the scene. Also, I remember during that scene this time around thinking that Yoda looked great in low lit situations, which, I mean, yeah, makes sense, but the CGI actually kind of looks good. Like, I don't hate CGI Yoda as much as a lot of people do, but he is a cartoon character in this movie. You have to accept that, and but there were moments, especially in low lit situations, where he actually started to look kind of like the puppet, and yeah, I liked that.
I think of all the experimental things that were done in this movie, Yoda was one of the better ones. Like he came off really well.
I mean, he kind of, in order for him to play the role in this trilogy that he needed to get the hand out of his ass in order to be able to actually move forward. And so I get it. This was the sacrifice that had to be made, and I'm okay with it. I've come to peace with that. My pick is just I really don't think there's a lot of peak Star Wars in this movie, but there's a lot of really fun moments that I think anticipate a lot of the great stuff that's going to come in the Clone Wars. But for me, I really do love that shot of the battle droids marching towards the charging Jedi with their lightsabers drawn. It's like one fluid shot, and it's really beautifully constructed and done. And to me, it's just like kind of what I always wanted to see as a kid, is like just a bunch of Jedi with their lightsaber charging against, if not a Sith army, then I guess some battle droids. But yeah.
Well, they can kill as many as they want ethically, still be the good guys.
Yeah.
That's true. And because we all know that droids were basically designed to be slaves in this galaxy. So,
And so were clones.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of think the Republic had it coming, to be honest. Built on the backs of clone slaves and droid slaves.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's typically what happens, right? You create a slave race, they will eventually rebel.
I mean, that's going to be post Rise of Skywalker, right? Where the droids finally become self-aware. Maybe this is all just R2's story about him becoming self-aware and then him leading the droids to destroy all life in the galaxy so that it could be run by droids. He's like, look, I've seen humanity at its worst, guys.
This is actually R2D2's roots.
Okay, let's move on to final thoughts and personal rating. And I'm gonna start with the negative Nancy and go with Julius.
Well, the score is gonna be 4 for me.
That's not bad. I was like, oh god, I think he's gonna give it a 1. It's gonna happen.
No. It like I said, it had flashes of greatness in it. Like the Coruscant scene was great. The scene where Obi-Wan's chasing Jango in the astral field, and he uses that sonic boom blast bomb. That was cool. Yoda, the Yoda fight scene, and there's like also the Palpatine character also was compelling. It's just the love story was atrocious. The execution of the overall story it just missed on all targets. So that's why I give it a 4, because like I said, it had flashes of good stuff in it, but overall it didn't hit for me. So I'm gonna give it a 4. And overall, like, it's what killed Star Wars for me. And it kind of also destroyed the this, like, before I saw George Lucas as like this genius, right? Of like, oh wow, this guy freaking sat down, he created this universe, and then it kind of humanized George Lucas for me. It kind of like, oh, he's just a dude who could mess up too, like the rest of it. Oh, okay, cool, all right. That kind of ruined it for me.
So this was like your great Star Wars disillusionment moment.
Yeah, that's when I started like realizing, okay, maybe I gotta look at alternatives here. Maybe I gotta find a George Lucas type who's in his prime and look for other properties to enjoy.
You're like, this is terrible. I need to get into some new shit because
yeah, no, seriously, because I was like, what am I doing here? Like, why did I spend 2 years of my life hyping this movie up, telling my friends about it, getting there and going, oh shit, this is terrible. And yeah, after that, I fell out of love with Star Wars. I stopped. I didn't care about it. Episode 3, the hype, everything, didn't care. I ignored it, and I just moved on, and I focused on like comic books, TV shows, or independent filmmakers who were coming up. Yeah, I kind of lost love, not just for Star Wars, but anything mainstream, anything like big mainstream. I kind of like, I'm done. Like, this isn't good.
Gosh, Attack of the Clones just like made you cynical about everything.
It did. It really did. And like I said, I wanted to love it. I went in there like, oh, I can't wait. And it just like, like shit. All right. Well, I guess that ride ended. The party's over.
Joseph, give me your take. Give me your rating.
I'm giving this a 6 out of 10. And part of it is that as much as I want to, it's just, you cannot ignore how bad the love story in this movie is. So, compared to the original trilogy, like, part of what made Star Wars so good was that it had like this certain spirit to it. And a big part of that spirit was like the adventure and the humor between the 3 main characters. And that humor continued in Han and Leia's story, and that's just like completely lost here. Like there's just, it's so dreary and over serious and melodramatic, I guess. And when Star Wars works, it's just fun, and like you don't care about the details because you're just having too much fun, and that doesn't happen in a large part of this movie, and it's right in the middle.
Yeah, I really do understand that sentiment. I'm kind of right there with you guys on this. I don't think I hate this movie at all, and I don't think I dislike this movie as much as Julius does. But I think for me, the interesting thing about this film was how much I drank the Kool-Aid when it came out. I bought the toys, I bought the books, I saw the movie a bunch of times. Really enjoyed that summer of Attack of the Clones. And then when the film came out on DVD, I watched it and I was like, I was done with Star Wars. I for some reason, my enthusiasm for the franchise evaporated in that moment. And I think that circa late 02, early 03, I wasn't really following Star Wars news anymore. I wasn't reading the books. I didn't care about Revenge of the Sith. I grew up, I think, in between, the release of Attack of the Clones and like within a 6-month period. This was kind of it for me for Star Wars for a while. And we'll definitely talk about that more when we get to Revenge of the Sith. But I think now I've kind of embraced that at the end of the day, Star Wars movies are a lot like pizza, and like there could be bad pizza, but pizza's still good even when it's bad.
Yeah.
And like I feel like, Attack of the Clones is kind of like your cold DiGiorno of Star Wars movies. That's kind of how I feel about this film, and it's definitely ranked at towards the bottom of Star Wars movies for me, but I still kind of like it. I'm giving this movie a 6. I don't know if it deserves a 6, but I think that there's enough good in this. There's enough set pieces and enough going on in Act 1 and 2 to overshadow how problematic the love story is. And yeah, I think it's just barely limping by with a 6 for me on this one. And I'm glad that our average is a 5.3. I think that fits Attack of the Clones pretty well, because yeah, this is I think Lucas is going to learn a lot of lessons from this movie leading into Revenge of the Sith. And this was definitely, for him, if Phantom Menace was, starting to flirt with the wrong direction, this was him going way into the wrong direction. And he had a lot to do to make up for lost time with Revenge of the Sith. And maybe he was successful, maybe he wasn't. We'll find out next week. All right, guys, I think that about wraps it up for Attack of the Clones. You can find more episodes of Star Wars Breaking Canon at breakingcanonpodcast.com. You can follow us on Twitter at SWBC Podcast. If you want to support our show, please rate and review us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from. On the next episode of Star Wars Breaking Canon, we'll be discussing 2005's Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Until then, thanks for listening, and may the Force be with you.